Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to GTO Trainer. Today we're going verse 3 bets, standard 9-hand configuration, starting from any position, starting from pre-flop. Okay, so we open, so it folds to us in the button with 10-8 suited. We raise. Facing a 3-bet from the small blind. Small blind's going to be 3-betting very, 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 very tightly. A small bet's free 3-bet range, even a small blind's opening range is very, very tight as they're incentivized to call and just complete with a lot of their cards. So I reckon this is a fold. They're correct. Even though suited gappers there, especially on the button when you're playing in position. Those are the type of hands you would be most likely to want to be calling a 3-bet in a lot of situations, as you're majority of the time not going to be dominated and you still have a lot of post-flop playability and you could easily outflop your opponent. Here we are. So we open ace-jack offsuit in the cutoff facing a big blind 3-bet. Very similar to the small blind in the fashion that the big blind's 3-bet range is also going to be very, very tight, as they're going to be acting first, obviously. But in addition, they are once again incentivized to just check and complete with a lot of their hands. So once again, I reckon this is going to be a fold, thinking that ace-jack's just going to be outkicked in a lot of situations, and we could be put into some very tough situations, even when we do hit our ace. Once again, best move. I did say that it was about 30% of the time we're going to be putting in a 4-bet. Calling's not going to get us anything, and then folding 72% of the time. Even that 4-bet has 0 EV, so I reckon the fold there's pretty good, mostly because if you're 4-betting that hand, you're going to be isolating too much of a strong range that you're definitely going to be putting yourself into a lot of tough situations with. And then the call, I guess you're going onto a flop with behind, but you are playing in position, but you're playing with mostly a hand that doesn't really have much post-flop potential, as in like you're mostly just looking to hit your ace or hit your jack top pair, and that's kind of top of range that you can have with that hand. It's, you can't really hit a flush because they're not offsuit unless you get very, very lucky with the flop, and then a straight's very, very rare, and you're only really going to have a gut shot in terms of most of the time it's going to be a gut shot to a 10, once again, unless you get a really, really lucky flop and somehow get a bit of an open-ender. Exact same situation. Well, same situation. We've got open in the cutoff with jack-8 suited, facing a small blind. 3-bet, once again, same situation. A small blind, pretty much both of the blinds are 3-betting is going to be extremely strong. Hopefully here I can show it up here. So yeah, small blind, very, very strong in terms of their 3-betting on the left-hand side here. So obviously we're going to have to tighten up our range in order to play well against that. Mostly because, like I said before, they're going to be playing out of position, which they know, and in addition, they're incentivized to just complete a lot of hands and just call and take some flops and play some defense. So when they start playing too much offense, it's screaming a lot of strength, which jack-8 suited is not going to be playing well up against when you're talking about range versus range. Next hand, we open under the gun with pocket 9s, folds all the way to the big blind. Once again, that's going to be another fold. It's saying sometimes we should be calling here, but once again, on this occasion, not every occasion, they had a 3-bet bluff in terms of their ace suited that we talked about a couple of episodes ago, and then it says, about 75% a fold, 25% a call, pretty standard. Once again, basically the same thing that I said beforehand, big blind, very incentivized just to completing, take some flops, because they're going to be playing heads up out of position, so when they 3-bet, it's going to be a very, very strong range, and you're mostly just talking about range versus range, not just what hands they have. So very standard fold there, especially when they're 3-betting out under the gun range as well. That makes their 3-bet range even stronger. because as you know, under the gun range, very, very strong already. So if you're 3-betting and under the gun's range, it's going to be, your range is going to be even stronger. Here we are under the gun, +1 with ace-5 suited, opening as a bluff. To balance our range a little bit, then we face a 3-bet from the cutoff. I reckon this will be a fold. It says it's about a 50-50. Well, okay, so there's 3 different options. The thought process of mine is that, once again, we're just going to be outkicked in a lot of situations. If we hit our ace, we're going to be outkicked. Pair of 5s is most likely not going to be good a lot of times, and we're pretty much just there for the flush. Calling doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The raise is a bluff in order to balance our 4-bets. I could definitely see that. Once again, this is the type of hand the solver likes to use to mix in those 4-bet bluffs in order to protect your 4-betting range. So that's probably why it's about a 38% chance of the 4-bet there. And then don't really too much understand the call, mostly because unless we hit our flush, the cutoff's going to have a lot of range advantage, even on an ace-high board. So I prefer the fold here. But definitely can understand the 4-bet bluff, trying to balance that range, similar to the video that we made a couple days ago, in terms of why you need to balance that range so that your 4-bet range doesn't become too strong to the point where you're isolating only hands that are going to be beating you. And here we are not only isolating hands that might be beating you, but then in addition, you're going to get folds from all hands that you're beating, and you're not going to make any money or realize the expected value from your strong hands. So we open under the gun +2 with pocket kings. Low jack 3-bets, folds back around to us. I reckon there's a standard 4-bet. They then 5-bet in the low jack. I'm perfectly happy sticking all the money with kings here. They have aces, but once again, we don't be results orientated. Oh, and we do win hitting our king. Once again, not results oriented. So yeah, pretty standard stuff. We open, they 3-bet with aces, folds back around to us. We hit the 4-bet. Here we're looking at about 77% 4-bet, and sometimes even just putting all the money in, which don't really understand putting all the money in. Pretty much because we're only going to get called. If we put all the money in here, under the gun versus low jack, they're going to have a very, very strong range under the gun when they 3-bet out under the gun range. So if we just shove all in here, maybe the theory is that they're going to have such a strong hand that they're going to call with their queens. Like, they're pretty much only, like, if we look here, top left, like, this is what we're looking at in terms of, so if we go all in, you know, we're only really going to get called by aces, ace-king, kings. Queens is sometimes a call here, not even a 4-bet, so, also what they did was a 5-bet, sorry. But pretty much, so here, if we go over to this one, okay, so this is pretty much what we're talking about with our low jack now. Okay, yeah, they've got some bluffs here. So what are we looking at here? No, so I want this one. Yes? Yes. Okay. So yeah, so when we 3-bet, okay, you know, they're calling with some of their pocket pairs from pretty much 6. Well, they even got some 5s and 2s in here. Damn, alright. But basically what I'm trying to say is I reckon you should, like, the shove here doesn't make much sense, because the only things you're beating they're going to call you most likely is going to be your queens and jacks, maybe 10s at some frequency, but most likely not queens and jacks. Other than that, like, yes, some ace-king will probably might call you as well, but then aside from that, like, queens that you're going to be flipping with, aces that you're dominated by. So I definitely don't enjoy the shove here. Definitely 100% going to be the 4-bet. And then when they 5-bet here, I don't at all like the call. I think the call makes 0 sense and it achieves nothing. Purely because when you call here, the stack to pot ratio is, so it's already with just before the call, it's already at 50 big blinds with our stack to pot ratio being, what's that, 1 point something, okay, just over 1. So, and then when we call there, it's going to be 1 or even less than 1. So yeah, it'll be less than 1. So your money's pretty much going to go in anyway. So I much prefer just putting in the money now while before we get to the flop. Realize our equity beforehand and then play it out from there, rather than just trying to take a flop where we know we're going to put in the money anyway. Unless I guess you want to try and argue, if I see an ace on the flop, then I can just fold that, get rid of 50 big blinds, save my 50 big blinds, don't put good money after bad money. That could probably be your only real argument against the 6-bet shove here. But yes, I just don't really understand the call there. You're just going to put in the money anyways, and if you're not putting the money in there with kings majority of the time, then, well, you shouldn't be playing poker. Unless this player is extremely tight, and you got some sort of read on him that he's going to have aces here majority of the time, or at least he's going to have aces here enough of the time to the point where it's no longer a profitable call. That could be your only real reason. But it's going to be pretty hard to be able to put your opponent on aces there and fold kings. And if you've got the ability to fold kings there, then I take my hat off to you. We open in the cutoff with king 3 suited, get 3-bet by the button, standard fold. Nothing really to say there. King 3, I guess that's just our opening bluff from the cutoff in order to balance our range, and then we get seen out by the button. Got to be snap folding that all the time. Similar type of stuff as we always talk about. You're most likely going to get dominated post flop, and your king's going to not going to be good a lot of the times, and is going to end up getting you into some tough situations. Exact same situation here. King Jack offsuit, open under the gun +2. Cut off 3-bets. When they're 3-betting out under the gun +2 range, it's going to be a very, very strong, because we are already having a strong range ourselves. So when they 3-bet us, that means that they're at least feeling comfortable enough in their hand strength in order to 3-bet what's already a tight range. So that makes their 3-betting range very tight, unless obviously it could be some bluffs to balance out that range. But King Jack suit is just going to get us into a lot of trouble there, getting out kicked in a lot of situations. And you're just going to end up losing the money even when you hit a good hand. And once again, doesn't have much playability. It's you hit top pair, and that's kind of it. So if you don't hit your top pair, you're effectively screwed. We open on the button with ace queen suited, facing a 3-bet from the big blind. Once again, big blind, very, very strong range. Pinned, so not much post flop potential, so we're not really incentivized to call here. So I lean towards a 4-bet. They shove all in. I reckon that'll be a fold. Okay, so they're saying we should have called there. I don't really understand why we would call the shove there from the big blind. Ace queen's probably bottom of range, in all honesty, for us. And I guess at best case scenario of ace queen, we are flipping, which I don't personally enjoy being put into flip situations while playing cash. In tournaments, you're never going to be able to escape flip situations. But in cash, you are able to avoid them, and I kind of tilt towards avoiding those flip situations, which is kind of our best case scenario when they shove all in this situation. One main thing that I found interesting is that it actually did, the best choice was to call. My original gut instinct was, I would call this at the home game, play in position, take some flops, and maybe that's what the solver's also thinking, but I was more thinking about, what would the solver do here in terms of, they would probably go against a call and just want to be going as the pre-flop aggressor in. But I guess it's kind of the similar situation as I've talked about before in terms of when we 4-bet here, we're kind of isolating a very, very strong range, and we're either just taking down the 16 bigs the 13 bigs that he's put in already, or we're getting called by something that we're way behind majority of the times, or we're going to get 5-bet jammed like we did before, in this hand. So I definitely do prefer the call, and I'm glad to see the solver also agrees there. So yeah, I'll definitely call in that situation, keep in the hands that you are beating, that you are dominating, and utilize your position to play some flops. So we open the small blind, king 5 suited, facing a big blind 3-bet. This is going to be a standard fold. Similar type of situation. When we're opening the small blind, even when it's heads up, it's still a decently strong range, as we are going to be playing out of position. And when the big blind, who's once again, like I talk about, I reckon is incentivized to just kind of check with a lot of their hands. I would have thought they would check with the a6 offsuit, but I guess they're trying to mix that in with some bluffs, so maybe that's why, as we see, it's about a 50-50 between both of them, but I lean more towards folding. We're playing out of position with a hand that doesn't really have much post-flop potential. If we had something more like a suited connector, I would really love a raise there, or a call, something like that, something with some post-flop potential, even though we are out of position. But it gives us something to work with, whereas I reckon king 5, we're going to be outkicked in a lot of situations, and if we miss the flop playing out of position, we're most likely going to be taken off, even if we are, the winning hand in that situation. Well, there's our 10 hands. GTO score of 90%. Great start. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care and play well.